Hey friends, welcome back to Wild and Wise. I am with somebody that I grew up with. We did not know each other as well growing up, but I've been able to admire her from afar as somebody that is a powerhouse in public relations, in business, and badassery. Please welcome Miss Hannah Schneider.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hannah and I grew up in Coronado together. Tell us a little bit about your trajectory after Coronado and like the beginning of your career, and we can work up to where you are today.
Yeah, if you knew me from Coronado, I'm sorry. I was very much the rebel kid in high school. I feel like I had a really different path than most of the people that we grew up with. I actually ended up graduating from a school in San Diego a little bit early, getting out of high school. And I did that in order to go into like an accelerated college program. And I think I went to class maybe 3 times, and I will never forget my dad saying to me, if you're not going to show up, don't waste your time and don't waste my money. And so, pretty much right at 18, I just went straight into the workforce. I worked in restaurants my whole life just to, pay bills and make rent. Was, hostessing, serving, loved hospitality from a really young age. Was working at a fine dining steakhouse in San Diego actually when I was 18, and they had a PR agency. And I will never forget Amy Ogden, who was with JPR at the time, walked in, and I thought she was like the most chic, coolest. I didn't even know what PR was, but I literally said, I want to do what she does. Like, whatever this is, I love it. I want to figure this out. And I went and I got a social media for dummies book, like literally at the Barnes and Noble. And I begged the owner of that steakhouse to let me. Instagram was brand new. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but can I just make one for you? And that, when I was 18, became my first client. So ended up learning more about what PR was and went on to intern with some agencies, some in San Diego that still are operating H2 PR and then chemistry PR, just to gain experience and really figure out. I feel like PR is a very vague term and no one really knows what we do. And I was like, I love restaurants, I love hotels, I love travel. Like, maybe I can, put this skill to use. Fast forward a few years later, my sister in New York City, who had worked in fashion forever, was taking the stab at opening a restaurant. And so I was working at Chemistry PR as a publicist, and asked my boss, Audrey, if I could go work in New York for 3 months and help my sister, who had never really worked in restaurants, like had no business really doing it. She's a badass, and it's 10 years later, still a cult loved restaurant in New York City, Egg Shop. But that is really career wise, I would say, what kicked everything off. I was helping her with all the social media and marketing, and Egg Shop just became this like kind of overnight phenomenon. Like, everyone loved it. It was this huge thing. And I was working in the restaurant at nights, but doing all the social media and content. And a lot of the restaurants in Soho in New York City, were asking her like, "Oh, what agency is doing your social?" And she's like, my baby sister does it. Like, it was not a thing. We were like bootstrapping the entire thing, and started freelancing from there, and it just sort of unraveled. I always say to people, I really had no grand plan of opening a business or an agency. I just was like trying to fake it till you make it, and I think that's what everyone does, however.
Right,
um
right,
and
right.
yeah,
And even
ended
if
up
you
saying
have the grand vision, it's not always what you end up.
it's never what you think it's going to be. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
it just spiraled into, I ended up getting a lot of clients in New York and ending up needing to hire help. Ended up moving to Nashville in 2016 for another restaurant project. Was lucky enough to help open a wine bar here called Salt and Vine. And the same thing happened. It was like, who's your PR agency? Kind of fell in love with Nashville. I thought I'd go right back to New York. I had my apartment there still, and just saw an opportunity here. It was growing really quickly. A lot of restaurants were coming from other markets, and I felt like I had a little bit of an edge in the marketing world, just coming from both coasts.
Yeah.
At the time, I felt like the landscape was like you hired your neighbor's daughter that knew what TikTok was, or could write
Yes.
maybe a release, and there was no one really competitively at the speed in which I worked that I felt like was doing that here. So ended up opening an office here, and growing it from there. I've done a few other projects in the hospitality space. I opened a coffee shop in 2019 called Kettner Coffee Supply. In San Diego, I lived in Little Italy on Kettner Street. And so this was sort of a little nod to San Diego, and ended up opening 3 cafes and selling that a few years later. So I'm sure we'll talk about all of that, but really, really kind of
Yeah.
stayed in my hospitality lane for the most part.
Yeah, it's such a niche lane to be in and one that we're both like so passionate about. That's why I enjoy our relationship so much because there's so many things that are like not only from where we grew up and being moms and figuring
Yep.
that part of our lives out, but also it's, we deal with the same personalities in work, therefore we probably have similar personalities. Um, and I really always have respected you from afar. I'm so grateful that we're doing this. Um, I find it interesting that a girl from like San Diego gets the opportunity to join her sister out in New York and like just I mean I remember the feeling in Chicago when I knew I had kind of made it and like people like wanted me and I just thought to be a transplant in a new city and people are like after you just feels like unimaginable because you think okay in San Diego I'm sure I could figure out how to get like my dad's cousin who's opening a Euro shop to come and hire me but like you go to a new city and you're like, there's not a chance in hell anybody's going to do anything with me, but here we go. That's the fake it, right? Like you're so delusional. I mean, you had your sister, but still, it's like you could have never imagined. So, yeah, what was that like when you were just like having that feeling of like people are knocking on the door and like I'm doing something different, but I'm in New York City? Like it's such a wild feeling, right?
It is. I'm really grateful. I have to say, my sister, I have 2 amazing sisters and a brother, but Sarah has always been such a huge inspiration for me, business wise. Like, she's just like the effortlessly cool girl. Like, she is it.
Mhm.
And we have a huge age gap. And so I've always just like really looked up to her. She's probably going to hear this and be like laughing at me, but she knew like all the cool kids in Soho. She found me my apartment. Like she was so
Oh,
dialed into like the Lower East Side Soho. She had worked in fashion forever before this, and and I owe a lot of this to her. Like she and Egg Shop opened a lot of doors for me, and I worked hard and I put in the work, but I
yeah.
really saying yes to things that I didn't know I was gonna go like hostess for her for 3 months. Like who knew? But
Right, right.
I knew what I loved to do in this space. And so being able to have the opportunity to do that with her was so cool. I think, you know, at the time when I realized this could actually be a career, I'll never forget my other sister Rachel saying to me one day, you're playing on Facebook all day. That's not like a real job, It was like
No,
so new.
that's what everybody thought.
Joke's on you now. I love her.
Yeah,
But when
that's
I
so
realized there
funny.
was actually something to this, I would go on Craigslist and look for restaurants that were hiring like marketing people and just show up and say,
Wow.
I do social media for a few restaurants. I'd love to help you. Like, do you want to just try for 3 months? Like, really actually showing, like, cold calling, showing up, grabbing a drink at the bar and asking for the manager. Like old school. No one would do that today. That would be so creepy, but it
I
worked. I
know.
had a lot of really great restaurants in Soho and East Village, and like this was so cool for me. And I think a big like aha moment, we signed Food Network star Jeffrey Zakarian, and that was like a different level of playing field at that point that I had ever really encountered. Ended up signing like a few other Food Network chefs through those connections down the road and worked with him for several years. And that was, again, just saying yes to any opportunity I could. Like I would go work late nights to be at any event he was at just to shake hands with as many people as I could. And yeah, I'm really grateful for all of those doors opening. But I think a lot of it is being at the right place at the right time and like forcing yourself into
Yeah.
situations that might not always be comfortable.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't have like that feeling now. Like, and I was thinking about that, like that hunger and that drive that we had, that knowing, like when you were in the steakhouse and you were like, can I just try this? Because I saw this girl and I just like, I think I want, like
Yep.
that knowing and that I don't know. I think I'm so grateful to have had that because I know not everybody has that, especially now that I still have a knowing, but it's evolved where I'm not trying to be in a room with a lot of people all the time. Like that
Yeah.
feels overwhelming to me, but I could imagine like that's how a lot of young people feel right now. So the idea of like get hungry and go get them and show up and just keep calling like could be like so overwhelming, and it's making me feel grateful that I never hesitated, and you and I
Yeah.
were just like a
Hungry.
carnivores, like just like ready to ravage the town. Like I said something the other day that like when I moved back here, I was like I was a savage. Like that's how I would describe myself. Like
Oh,
absolutely savage. But like to Californians, it was like whoa, whoa, slow down, Chicago girl, because I was just
right.
like, all right, what are we doing? Like let's be that same work
Get to
ethic and
work.
like I know, but it's so interesting. So I guess I'm leading into the question of like, at what point do you think it switched from like working till midnight, doing anything to shake hands? Because of course that then achieves a certain level of foundational success that allows you to then choose if that's for you. Like, where would you say that shift comes?
That's a really good question. I think for me, I've always had multiple projects going on at once. And I think I need that to keep that motivation and keep that hunger. I do tend to, like, once something is up and running and it's smooth, sort of get bored. I wish I could be more fulfilled at all times, but I think the creating part still gets me going. Like, I want to be part of it from ground up. And so I don't think I've ever had one job. Like, I was working
Yeah,
in restaurants and doing this side hustle. And even when I had an established agency, I then went and opened coffee shops because I just didn't really like
right.
any of the coffee shops here. I think that is like this serial entrepreneur piece in me, that when I'm
Yeah,
starting something new, if I'm missing that like drive,
yeah,
that gets me going again. So I think the ability to like be creating, and I think in an agency setting, we're working with so many different types of clients. I do still get that kind of high from it.
hmm,
But there's certainly lulls where I'm doing, paperwork all day or contracts all day, and it's quite boring and
right.
not glamorous and not sexy, and figuring out like HR and payroll and New York State taxes. So yeah, I'd say it's cyclical. I think I've gotten good at identifying what drives me and what motivates me and making sure I always sort of have something in the pipeline.
Yeah. And it also, I think, is like an observation of like what's necessary or what we kind of need. I feel like as I get older, I'll have clients reach out to me that I would have normally not taken on, but it's like exactly what I need. We just signed a wellness client and did a proposal for
Yeah.
another wellness, and like never in my dreams as like a, cigarette smoking, hospitality, booze drinking kind of gal did I think I'd be like, I really need wellness clients right
Really?
now. And like I'm feeling it. Like I'm so
Yeah.
but it's just so interesting that you also will like build a coffee shop because one didn't exist that was to your liking, or you are fulfilled in this sort of like right now, like I would never take on a design client because our design clients that we have are so robust and so thick and
Mm.
it's amazing and we're all in it. So then this like light of something else that comes is like always interesting. And it's both the beauty of being able to own your own business, but also, that you really end up paving the way that your life is because you work so much that opening a coffee shop or bringing on a different client that's sort of like interesting to you or in a different part of town that's like up and coming and only you kind of know that that's about to explode. Like there is this like conductor of an orchestra that we get to have that is such a niche experience that I would imagine is also like hard to be friends with and date a bit. Like I'm speaking for myself because I am conducting so many different things and moments and movements and design and experiences that it's hard to kind of for me function like in a normal life with girlfriends and like
Yeah.
dating and because
It
I'm
never
I'm
turns
all
off.
in here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When it's in you, I I see often on social media the glamorous like entrepreneurship, and I'm like, there's really nothing glamorous about being an entrepreneur. Like, I think everyone thinks they need to be a number one and like own their own company. There's so much value in being a kick-ass number two, three, and four, and those are very important roles. Then being the number one means you never turn off. You never don't feel the weight of everything on your shoulders. And so, yeah, I can empathize with that completely, where it's like, I read something recently about like the mental load. And
Ugh,
there is just never a time in which, even if I have someone helping pick up my daughter from school or bring her to this activity, I'm still thinking about it. That does not turn
yep,
off. I think
yep.
that is the difference between, I truly believe you're either meant to be an entrepreneur, it is in you. I don't think you can teach it, because that
Yes,
piece of
I
your
agree.
brain, it just doesn't turn off. There's just no end to it. And
You're
it's a
so
blessing and a curse for sure. It's why we're in, you know, the positions that we've been able to be in. But it's also really hard to turn off, and it can be extremely isolating and extremely lonely when you don't have friends or people in your peer group that go through those same like emotions on a daily basis, honestly.
And I'm also kind of struggling with like my friends do like I've curated and brought like attracted and or just and divinely found some really high level friends over the last, year. Like I feel like my core people have changed and some have remained, but in different positions. And I still feel like I don't want to like go there with them because that's all they've been having to stress and think about. And we're kind of all together just to like forget it. So it becomes actually
Yeah.
even lonelier because even when you're with your friends who own businesses, they don't want to hear about your fucking tax
I don't want
problems.
to talk about it.
Like they're just like, please, bitch, I just finished mine. Let's have some wine. So it's like I don't really bring it to my friends what's going on with my business because,
Right, right. Well, that's why we have each other. We're our digital therapy
it's
friends, honestly.
constantly. Well, let's talk about how you got to sell the business because I think that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dreamers out there. There's a lot of talkers. There's also a lot of
Yep.
stunning and amazing number one, two, three, and four. I absolutely love that point, by the way, because it is this weird myth of feeling like you have to be number one and that's it. And it's so true. My God, if I found like, the right person that took care of me and allowed me freedom to just design parts of the business and
Yep.
then go to sleep at night and
Oh,
yes, what a dream. During COVID, I
what a
was
dream.
like lost everything, clients were gone. I'm sure you went
Yeah.
through a lot too. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to totally be someone's like administrative assistant. And like my friends were like,
Dream.
but I was like, oh my God, to like run somebody's errands and like
That
go
is
get
my
them
dream job
coffee.
to
Like I
be.
just was like, oh my God, it sounds just so light and so easy. And so, pop my little
You'd
earphones
be
in.
so good.
I would yeah, missing that simple life a little bit. But talk to me a little bit more about the process of selling a business, like more so like not just the process of what it was, but like how the fuck did you do it? How did you even think it was time? Like what people did you get in your corner? Like how did you find
Yeah.
lawyers? Like less of the process and more of like
Yeah.
how, like
Who did it?
who helped
Yeah.
you? Like how does one even think to do such a thing?
For sure. I'll start with Brand House because that's probably the most interesting. I sold Kettner, my coffee shops as well, but that was really a personal contact I had, and I truly got lucky. But Brand House was intentional. So it was previously Hannah Schneider Creative. I brought on a partner, co founder, Lisa Field, and rebranded it as Brand House. I figured when it was Hannah Schneider Creative, I had scaled it to where I could. If you were hiring that, you were hiring me. And I needed it to be bigger than me. I needed my name out of it. I had to have no ego, take the name out of it, rebrand it, and bring in someone that supplemented my skill set and that was better at things that I wasn't good at. So Lisa and I rebranded about 5 years ago. I think we were like sitting on my couch having wine and just came up with the name and like threw a website together. And it was really scary bringing on a partner as well. I had been on my own forever. It was like someone else to talk finances with. We don't always agree. It is one of the most fulfilling relationships I've ever had, and I don't think I could have done it with anyone else on the planet. I'm so grateful for her because you go through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows with this person, and
Mm-hmm.
could not have done it without her. I want to say that very clearly. We had both gotten to the point where we felt like we had scaled it to where we knew how. We were making great money. We had great clients. We had a staff of about 20. And we just kind of year over year were like still hitting these. We were growing every year, but it was never these like big milestones anymore. Like it was a little bit bigger than what we knew what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
Transparently,
20
I
is
had a
nuts.
daughter.
20
Yeah,
people is
yeah.
nuts. Like people don't,
Yeah, it's a lot.
it's a
It's
lot.
a lot. It still is. But I had a daughter in 2020, and it sounds so cliche. Man, I really didn't think I would be this person. I really never wanted kids. I was like not super maternal. She was a beautiful accident, and I think I took 3 days off work and was like back at it. It was the height of the pandemic. Like I didn't have the
Ugh.
opportunity to work. And she was about 2, and I remember coming home and just feeling miserable. I was making great money, more than I ever had, but I was working 12, 13, 14-hour days, like truly working 14-hour days and missing everything with my daughter. And not only that, I would carve out moments with her and time on the weekends, and you make it up where you can, but I was so depleted coming
Mhm.
home that I wasn't a great partner or a friend or a mom. Like I was tired or I was cranky. And I just felt like I had worked for myself for 15 years, hustling, hustling.
Mhm.
And I just hit this point and of exhaustion. And I said to Lisa, you can have it. You can just take it, or we can close it because I'm done. I'm exhausted. I am miserable. I don't really like who I am as a
Mhm.
leader. Um, or we can like throw a Hail Mary and let's see if we can sell it. And I work with a financial planner, Chris Brophy. He knew kind of my goals in this. And to be fair, Lisa and I always wanted to sell.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of hours setting up our business to be scalable and sellable. We had systems in place, everything had an SOP. Like this was
Wow.
when her and I went to partnership, she said, I want you to know I don't want to run a small business. I want to grow it and I want to sell it. So we did do a lot of the foundational work there to where, like, if we weren't there, hopefully it could still be running. So Chris introduced me to a company called Viking Mergers. They have offices throughout the nation, but there was 2 gentlemen here in Nashville that I could meet in person. Ended up meeting them, and they, very candidly said to me, like, it's really hard to sell a service-based business. Like, if
Yeah.
we're not there, the business usually isn't there. If you get an offer, I don't know, it might be 12 to 18 months before we have anything, but like we can go through the evaluation process and see. And I was like, yeah, let's try it. So we went through that process, go back and forth with numbers, humbling. What you think you might get, you might not. And they listed it on basically like a brokerage website. And we had 3 offers within 2 weeks. And one of them was bullshit, like offensive. One of them was like, I don't know, okay, but not really what we wanted. And one of them was like quite fair, pretty much what we were asking.
Wow.
We ended up listing and closing the acquisition within 45 days. It was the fastest close they've ever done in their company. And I have goosebumps still even thinking about it. I don't even know if I was like ready to sell. Like, you think you want this, and then you realize, part 2 is like my entire identity over the last 15 years
Mhm.
is now not mine. And it's like everything I worked for and everything I wanted, but that's a real something we might get into later.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ended up coming to terms with the deal. Um, and closing. We closed in October of 2023. I have now been working for Brand House, the company we founded, for the last 18 months. And I think it's hilarious I still work here. I don't think anyone would think I liked having a boss or a job. And I have to say, it has been, for me, one of the best experiences of my life. Like, I have never been happier or actually had this balance that I had been craving for
Yeah.
many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids will change everything. I'm so glad you had that. And yeah, like the 3 options, like during burnout that you're discussing with your, business partner is like, you can have it and we can figure it out. It's over. Or this,
Yes.
this third idea that's like you said, a Hail Mary. And what an incredible feat for the guy to think that it was going to take so long and then for it to be the fastest one they've ever had. And especially because you
It's
were
great.
like the sort of foundational human in the market in Nashville, like
Yeah.
you were there before a lot was there. And so your knowledge
Yeah.
and the power of your brand was just profound. And then to have the New York connection, almost like from a my vision, it was almost like I knew you had spent time in New York, but it's almost like you got so big in Nashville, and then the power then was like put over the edge with the fact that you had offices in New York. But like to me, like when I really
Yeah,
saw you like rise, it was just like she knows Nashville and she's got a New York
Nashville.
office, you know, like it was
Yeah, I
really,
agree. And I think that's similar to San Diego, right? Like I quickly realized I could be small potatoes in New York, tiny little cockroach in New York,
hmm
or I could come to this other smaller market and actually create a name for myself where I can afford the overhead, rent is cheaper for an office space. Like taxes were better. I mean,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
love to come home to San Diego, but as a business owner, I was like, that's not actually the smartest decision for me.
yeah.
There was just a lot of opportunity here that um, I felt like was the right time and the right market for me, and we could build something bigger, um, and kind of grow that here, which thank God has become like this hot destination now, and I'm
I
really
mean,
proud of that
beyond.
and excited about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've been such a
but
big
it
part of
wasn't
that.
when I got here.
Right. Well, what do you say is the biggest difference between like when you got there to now? I mean, I'm sure it's just the whole town is different. There's new neighborhoods, but like, what's the vibe?
I'm I'm literally looking outside my office right now and there's like 18 cranes. I mean, it is the vibe is explosive. Like the
Mhm.
city is on fire. And a bit of that like grit hustle that is exciting that we had years ago. It almost forces you to have to work harder and better. And I mean that in a positive way of
Yeah.
like you don't just get away with it anymore. Like there is competition. There are big brands coming from New York, San Francisco, Chicago, LA. Like this isn't now just your mom and pop. This is
Yeah.
big brands and a real playing field. And like
Yeah.
we had to level up. And I liked that challenge. It's fun to still get like we just signed a big group from Chicago, Let Us Entertain You.
Wow.
And
The
I laughed.
whole,
I said to my CEO, I was like, I have never worked so hard for a proposal in my life. And I loved that I was in a space emotionally, mentally, that I was still so fucking excited to sign this client. I've signed hundreds of clients.
right.
This wasn't like bonkers money. Like it's not going in my pocket. It wasn't like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
deal, life changing deal, but the fact that I was still just so proud and excited to like have won this business
Yeah.
was such a cool sign to me that like I'm in the space I wanted to be in. Like I
Yes.
found that joy again and I like went and celebrated and
Oh,
I just it was nice to sit back and be like, how grateful am I that I'm actually still doing what I love and I get to be
yes.
part of this company I created, but I'm actually in a role where I'm happy. And
hmm
I wouldn't have had that a year and a half ago if I was still running it, which is
Yeah.
super interesting.
What a beautiful place. I feel like it's interesting with how crazy the world is right now. I definitely feel like our company is in this stunning flow. Like a really
Mhm.
like it just I don't know. I just think for so long when you're dealing with clients that you're learning what like a toxic client is or you're learning what just not the right fit is. I
Yeah,
just never really could imagine a world where we could have the, clients that we just like everybody flow like I don't know. I just feel like the disruptions feel like nothing now. And I don't know if that's because before they would throw me for a loop because I was
yeah,
underprepared and young and offended and
yeah,
emotional. And now I'm, very like, as stoic as I can be when it comes to business and matter of fact and solutions oriented. But also it's just like what you attract, like the fact that as both entrepreneurs but also in the creative space we get to sort of really draw the blueprint for our lives and pull strings in different places to adhere to where we are in our social emotional psychological lives, like I
yeah,
can really dive deeper into work and have that as an outlet while things may be falling apart in other places. And I don't know many jobs that you really like. Even I would say, for example, as an architect, I mean, you can dive deeper into work, but still, like, if the drawings are done, do you have that outlet?
yeah,
Versus, like, what we do is so, like, I could go and decide that one of our clients could have a certain event that I need. But I'm like, okay, I need to
yeah.
talk about fear, or let's do a panel on,
Create.
or, yeah, it's just, that's, I think, it's interesting because even like I'm in like dual therapy right now. I have two therapists right now, Go Healing. And
Love.
And like one of them was like, so like what are your hobbies? And I was like, this is always a tough one for me because I don't want to wear the hat of like workaholic, but it is truly, and after discussing it with them, they said like I approve of this. Like you get to
Mhm.
create community, you get to bring people together, you're going,
Yeah.
putting candles together or, overseeing your team who's doing like the vision that you originally started and now they're taking on that vision. Like that is my hobby. Like that is what I like to see and
Definite.
do. I
Yeah.
like to see what's
Yeah.
new in town and talk to creatives and look at logos. And like I feel the same way as you
Yeah.
where I could do this for the rest of my life. There's no question about it.
Yeah. I agree. And I think we're lucky to have known that for a long time. Like
Hmm.
I knew since I was 18 exactly what I wanted to do. And I will forever be grateful for that. Like I see so many people struggle with not knowing what path they want or they're not really passionate about a certain thing. And I actually think that's probably one of the hardest things you could go through. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful I knew immediately what I wanted to do. And I love it. I still love it. But hobbies is interesting. Like I didn't have this past 18 months has stripped, my entire identity as like hustle mode, like girl boss vibes to where I'm like, I love my slow era. I love not being a CEO. And I didn't know if I would. I didn't know if I would be completely depressed and miserable or if I would like having a job and having to have weekly meetings with my now CEO,
Right.
and really trying to figure out who am I that is not just work,
Yeah.
um, is quite scary when that's literally what I've been known for since I was uh, 18 years old. Like,
Hmm.
if you knew my name, it was associated to something I had done with work. It was nothing else. I had nothing else. That's scary,
Yeah, girl,
to
I'm
be
right
quite honest.
there.
It's like it's just not yours anymore, even though you built it.
Wow.
But it's been really refreshing to figure out, like, besides that, what do
Right.
I stand for? What do I care about? What do I value? How do I want to spend my time? Like, I played tennis in Coronado High School. I hadn't played in 15 years and I started tennis lessons again. And it's like
Oh, I love
been such a joy. And taking trips for fun without a computer for the first time in my life. It's been like such a healing year and a half for me, and just kind of figuring out, like, to my core, I will always have my work, but I just really wanted to be more than that. Like I wanted to be a friend you could call when you had a bad day, or a
it.
mom that put her phone in the other room and could actually just play Barbies for 35 minutes. Like I know you can empathize with this too. Like
Yes,
you just
everything.
everyone thinks they want to own their own business, but those daily little things have become so like magical to me because I
Mhm,
never had them. And
mhm.
I will not ever take that for granted
Yeah,
again. And I'm sure I'll start another business in my lifetime. I'm sure.
I'm
I have no
sure.
clue what or when or what, but I am just learning to like really soak in those little things that feel like, if you have a job and you go home at 5:30 or 6, you close your computer, you go home to your family or you go to your friends at happy hour and you just enjoy life. We have never had that. Like that
Mm,
to me is a luxury
I
right now.
agree.
And that there was no price that you could put on that. And I don't even think I would have known that without going through this process.
The
And
thing
that
that I
has been
think is
like the biggest.
interesting in the balance of like growing, like I think that like in Chicago we grew to freelancers and staff about 20, but not all full time. And I was just swimming in my own anxiety. Like I was at all times operating from a place of just fear, couldn't even begin to describe it. It was like terror.
100
Terror. I was
terrible.
operating from a place of absolute terror, and I was a terror. I
Yeah.
was a terror.
Yeah.
So I,
Horrible to be around.
as we do, like cultivated this black and white mentality after when 2020 came. I literally had closed our Chicago office in 2019 quietly, at the very
Yep.
end of 2019, never knowing what was about to happen. Thank you, universe. And
Yep.
when 2020 hit, I've never felt more of a breath of fresh air in my life because I had no staff. I had nobody to
Yep.
answer to. I was working, in San Diego on Chicago hours, so everybody'd be in the office by 8:30. So I was working at 6:30 a.m. every single day, which meant I had to get up and get dressed and ready far before then. And I was completely burnt out when 2020 hit, and I was flying on both coasts, and it was just so wild what it's like, but we had built that, right? So that's what's the most interesting, especially about female entrepreneurship, is when you're a hustler and a dreamer and you sort of operate somewhat in your masculine. That's sort of what I think sometimes,
Yeah.
like, and then because I'm only saying the masculine because I'll come back to then learning the feminine, which is like a whole new revolution. um
Yeah.
and we build the thing and the thing happens and everybody's on board and it's a just monster of a thing to manage, and it was all came from your
Mhm.
head. You created this, and then you hit a place because you can't untangle. I mean, it's sometimes impossible to untangle while you're in it,
Yeah.
and then you finally hit that point, and I did as well in a different way, but I was so
Yeah.
grateful. And then I felt like in 2021 that I could do it however I wanted, and I was super crazy about remembering what one thing that Heidi Hageman said to me once, which was like, small is simple, small team, small client load. And so I've kept it that
Amen.
way, and it's been glorious, but there's something knocking right now. And I think it's my time to really assess, how can I grow into my feminine, keep the slow life, keep my children a priority, keep the girls feeling like there's something new and exciting and alive happening with the brand, keep myself seeing that liveliness too, getting tighter with our systems, getting more structured with how we work, who we work for, what we do for them. And I'm doing that, with your help. And you've been
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible at that. And I'm really grateful because everybody always says, like, find a mentor, like, find your tribe. And I'm like, I don't know where they are because I'm like in this weird niche place. And like,
Like,
I
where
don't,
do we
yeah, I was like, hi, can you be my mentor actually, though? So I actually consider you that, and I didn't even realize that till we just had this conversation, but you really are in so many ways. But
find?
it's just interesting because you come to a place where you think, I'll never do that again, and then you start it and you build it the way you want it, and then you realize, like, there's
Totally do it.
gray in life. Like, what is this middle ground between these two black and white places when it comes to being a woman? What is this gray area when it comes to being a business owner, when it comes to being a creative strategist? And it's that gray
Yeah.
area that is, I think everybody's going through that right now. Like, we're kind of throwing away all this.
Everyone I've talked to. And, I think you nailed something that's so important. And I feel like I tried to say this to people, and it sounds like I'm like bitching about my 15 years. I'm so grateful for every single moment that got me to today.
Mm-hmm.
Every single moment. There were hard times, there were a lot of highs too. But I think people have this like wrong perception that bigger is better.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to other even agency owners here in Nashville that are like, oh my God, you have this huge team and we want that. And it's not. I'm like, do you? Bigger is not always better. Simple and small. I've run the numbers. I would make the same amount of money if I took 5 of my own clients as I did when I was billing over millions of dollars and had a staff of 20. I personally would walk with the same amount of money
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the year. A lot less headaches. So I also think knowing if you're wanting to start a business, if you feel like you do have this drive in you, like not feeling like bigger is always better. Like that doesn't always need to be the goal. And I think people just get that really wrong. And there's this like fake persona of like, well, their team is 50, they are crushing it, or they have
Ugh.
this amount of clients.
You
That
say
is
50
not the case.
people,
Like,
and I want to throw up. Like,
oh my gosh, like that just means 50 more headaches. I mean,
I
I'm sure they're
know.
great people, but I really, and anyone that's listening, if they are going to start something, like knowing that like your own path is okay, I think
Yeah.
is so key, and not giving a shit about those like fake numbers or
Mm-hmm.
someone else's path. Like stay so narrow and like determined in what you want to do and not feel this pressure of like having to grow just to grow.
Yeah.
That does not always mean your bottom line is growing. Like
No, that's been the case
it's
for us
just not
too.
the case. Mostly
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, like
Yeah.
your labor is going up. your taxes are going up. It's really fascinating to me. Even at
Pedigree is going up, so who you're hiring costs more. If you're all of a sudden going from 3 clients, maybe 5 clients, to staff members, and everybody's happy and everybody's good, and people can kind of go to Pilates when they want to, and nobody's really working weekends, like that's a golden fucking life that I also think young people don't appreciate. They don't know that like the way that we worked, it was like anxiety attack, clients calling me at all hours of the night, me having to absolutely have all of the answers,
literally,
having to go pop over to the restaurant when I'm half drunk with my friends at a nice dinner and they're having I mean, I could go on and on. But the other thing too within this is the pedigree of people. When you start to grow, you can't just keep, young cheap labor. You have to bring in VPs, like mid-range from other agencies. I mean, we did that in
yep,
Chicago and it was just costing us so much money that all of a sudden I was making less for the first time growing it. I was like, bringing
absolutely.
in bigger people. And then I was like, oh, I can barely, like, I'm back to like from the beginning days. Like, I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like, so yeah, the bigger is better is not the way, but also you have to understand what kind of life you want, like you are the conductor, you are the master, you are the master of your ship. What is the phrase that everybody has with the big tattoo? It's like, I don't know, something around that. Some pirate guy.
I know what you're talking about.
I once knew this pirate guy that had it, but whatever. So anyways, so one of the things that I had written down that I really want to like wrap this conversation up with, because I think it's also
Yeah,
where we're at after these similar years of burnout and long days and soft landings, is
yeah,
letting things land where they're meant to and no roadmap. And when I read that, I wrote it down because it just like bolted me, because I'm totally in a new landscape right now myself with my life, and feeling very much like it's the first time that I haven't had like goal set, achieve, celebrate, move on, and
absolutely.
that's how you are too. And it's like, so talk to
Yeah.
me more about like this feeling that you have cultivated now of like no roadmap and kind of like taking things as they come and allowing things to kind of flow.
Yeah, I honestly think it's because this is the first time again in 17 years that I am not a business owner
Mm,
at all. I don't own a single business today. I don't think I would have been open or could have possibly emotionally even had this thought before.
mm-hmm.
But it's like I do go to my job, I do a good job, and I do go home at 6 and I do shut my computer and I don't check my email. I have never had that. I have never not been thinking, what is next? What is the business doing? Like, again, to me, this is the luxury right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making less money than I've ever made in probably 10 years. And I feel like I'm living the most luxurious life
Time is a
because I
luxury.
have this. It is everything. And I never ever could have even come to this mindset
Yep.
as a business owner. And so everyone's like, well, how long are you going to stay? I'm like, I don't know until I stop liking it. Like, I love my job. I'm super happy. I'm really proud of the team I built. They're still here. I still feel ownership of Brand House. But I also have time to see friends and my daughter and my family and take trips for fun. And it's just sort of taught me that, like, it is the first time in my life I am actually not thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
And if something really cool came my way, I'm super open, but I'm like fulfilled,
Yeah.
content for the first time in a long time. And there's always been this roadmap. There's always been these milestones you have to hit. And like, as a business owner to operate, you need those goals. Like, that's that's a huge part of running a business. And I'm just sort of letting what's meant to be and being
Yeah.
open to any conversations. And when I feel pulled to something or passionate about something, I'm excited to have that opportunity. That sounds like so woo woo to me, but it's truly what's
But
resonating with
honestly,
me right now. Like,
yeah, and like those goals after thinking with no break, it fucks up your nervous system. Like I'm really in that fucking healing process right now. That like
yeah,
that
yeah,
it is a luxury the way that it's set up because your team was so big. I feel like I have the luxury of having a smaller team where I can
mhm,
okay, we're not working in the, team of 15 or whatever, but that
Yeah,
constant grinding, it really, it, when you become a mother,
not
you realize
healthy.
like your health is so important. And like when you're in your 20s and you're like a savage, you don't give a fuck about that. And I feel you
No,
so
my
much
God,
that time is a luxury and that our nervous systems can't take that, you know?
100%. My health is better than it ever has been. I'm more patient. I mean, I think there's so much trauma in running an agency, like so much PTSD. I remember 2 years ago, if any employee like pinged me or emailed me or texted me, I would immediately, my body would tense up. I
Mhm.
immediately would go into a panic, like, fuck, they're quitting. Like, this is just what it is. Like, I would spiral before even knowing what the conversation was about. Like, it was so traumatic. That is not a normal response to someone saying, "Can you catch up?" or "Do you have time? Do you have 5 minutes?"
Mhm.
And
But you
yeah,
didn't
there's
have
a
the
lot of
emotional energy. It's like that's what the trigger is when you're pulled in so many directions, managing so many things, and somebody needs you to be soft for a moment. It's like so hard when you're
yeah,
like wrapped in wires of hardness to keep it all
yeah,
together and someone's like, "Can you be soft?" And you're like, "How?" Like I feel that with my whole soul.
yeah, and I have a lot of, I don't want to say regret, but like looking back at how I was a leader
Yeah.
throughout the last 10 years, like now being out of it and being an employee, I can understand their perspectives so much better. And again, I'm so grateful to have this perspective now.
Yeah.
I never would have had it where it was like, I remember getting so annoyed if my staff didn't like respond immediately at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. And it's like, yeah, because they're not at work. Like
Yeah.
now as an employee, I feel the same way. I could not wrap my head around it. I truly didn't even I couldn't go from A to Z. I just was like, your boss is texting you, you respond. Like
Mhm.
I didn't even have that in me. And so and I led that way. And I
Yeah.
wish now and I hope if I do something in the future, I will be a much stronger, kinder, more patient manager, leader. That was something I really had to work at.
Yeah. But
Um,
that is the learning.
because
I
in my
mean,
personal life,
they were like your children and you were learning how to be a mom with them. I mean, I tell my
I
kids all the
I
time.
was also with my baby.
I
Yes,
know.
and like you have to be hard. Like you have to make hard decisions every single day that they can never even understand. And
Yeah.
so I think, I in my personal life I am soft and loving and emotional, and at work I was like savage. You had to be also. Like when
Mhm.
you're 29 and you're working with Hyatt and Hilton and Marriott, like I don't have the again luxury of like turning it off and just like not really caring. Like
Yeah.
every single person's paycheck, I would think about at night. If something small happened on a social media post, I would think they're all going to lose their jobs and not pay rent. Like that is just where your brain goes. And
Mhm.
so, yes, having this time for your nervous system is and being able to like communicate that to them of like why it was such a big deal to me is
Mhm.
something I actually hope I have the opportunity to do someday. Like if they old employees are ever hearing this, it's like
Yeah. It took me a while, and I
they're
can
just
tell it's the same in you
part.
where it took me a long time to be able to admit that I was just a bear and that the energy in the office that was super toxic was all my fault. And I
Yeah,
pointed fingers for a while. I had a baby. I was a single mom. I was postpartum. Probably every
yeah.
mental issue of postpartum fucking would didn't even realize it. I was like 5 days too.
Yeah,
5 days
sure.
after childbearing, just right back to work, and everyone's like, "Why are you a bitch?" I'm like, "Well, do you have a minute?"
'Cause I'm a
Just to cite, yeah. But I talk about it a lot on the podcast, and I say it in hopes that the people that have worked for me that experience that can hear it. I've talked to my brother who worked for me
Yeah,
for a long time to deeply apologize to him because I do feel
yeah,
like my mental health was absolutely never even really thought about. Like I was like, they are a disaster. They are not doing what I need. But I never was like, am I okay? Am I maybe like mentally not well? Like that never crossed my
yeah.
mind. And so yeah,
You
it's
don't have the time to
you don't have the time. Yeah, because what am I gonna do? Go check myself into a hospital? We got work to do. There's no fucking way. Like it's just a
It's
funny thing.
it's true. It's so true. And like, yeah, I feel like I've struggled with like that guilt for a long
Yeah.
time. And then I also am like, but I was also a vehicle for them to get to the next chapters in their
Amen.
careers. And I'm really proud of that.
Amen.
And I hope that they know that it was coming from a place of like wanting the best for everybody in the
Yeah.
room, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's really hard to be feminine and kind and loving and maternal in a workplace and also be the one that's fucking signing the checks. And
And
if something
negotiating
bad
the
happens,
deals
they're
and
all coming
dealing.
back.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like
Yep.
this clip from the I was on a reality show called PR Girls in like 2019.
Remember this.
And I just remember like the clip is so true to this day. And I have like a shaved head and I was like tatted and I was just like, in Chicago, catching a taxi. So funny. But I was basically like, men always ran the ad agencies and now women have taken over PR. But like, having to wear all the hats as like a mom and like you have to listen to the girls and what their goals are. And then you have to like help them and lead them and you have to be soft, but then you have to like turn around and tell the client to go shove it up his ass and he can never talk to anybody that way. And he better pay you now. And like, the like knife fight of like putting the knife away to look at your team and then turn around and get the knife back out, like it's such, and nobody talks about it. So I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly because I just feel very like seen and acknowledged in like that power struggle. And I experienced it in motherhood too. It's probably my greatest challenge is like I like to have the knife out. Like the knife out feels good to me. And my life is changing and the knife doesn't need to be out. And
Yeah.
so who am I without the knife out? Who am I soft? How do I grow this business soft? How do I become a softer mom? How do I set down the phone and play? And I think so many women will
Yeah.
relate to this episode. So thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love our conversations, and I think you are one of the most vulnerable and transparent people in this industry that I've ever gotten to speak with. So I also think of you as a mentor, as a mom, and a friend. So I'm really grateful to be here.
I love you.
Love you.